I'll first of all thank all of you for coming and then making your input with this paper. My name is Isaac Nyameke. I'm from Ghana, but I'm now based in the States. I'm doing my PhD in Alaska, and I also teaching in Alaska. So we have 6 papers under our session, and each participant has 15 minutes of speaking, and I'll kindly plead with you to be very specific in order not us to lose our time. And then if it's more than 15 minutes, the piece itself will just cut it off. And then I'll also show you a timer of how many minutes is left. Okay. Thank you.
Where is the session chair?
You are? Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. We have Cornelia's purchase space, and then from there, Iddrisu will speak next. We have Lufefe after Iddrisu, and then myself. I think I'll do mine at the last minute, and then we have Rouhani, and then I received a last one just a few minutes ago. Patrick. Okay. So I would just kindly let I don't know what I should call you, a proper Cornelia or doctor, I don't know. So I will let you introduce, and then I'll just give you a cool share.
Okay. Okay, Isaac. Thank you very much for the general organization, for the invitation, and for the opportunity to make a little contribution. Can you please share or show the slides, because I think I transmitted them to make it foolproof.
Okay, then I'll do that.
Yeah, actually, what are we talking about here? We had a very interesting 2 sessions this morning, where we already heard a lot about, on the one hand, the marginalization of small-scale fishers, men and particularly women, not having a voice in ubiquitous marine spatial planning, rule setting, management and governance arrangements, and while their lives and their livelihoods are affected directly. And we also were reminded by the last issue of the Illuminated Hidden Harvest that about 1/4 of food production from the ocean stems from small-scale fishes. But as the criteria for evaluation and assessment also evolve in today's world, where the Sharm el-Sheikh COP25 made only very modest progress in terms of setting up an account for loss and damages, but could not really bring itself to making a renewed and strong commitment to meet the 1.5 degree limit. We can see that small-scale fishers are particularly affected. Obviously not the only ones, because we're all affected, but you know, the issue of how you fish and how much CO2 you emit across the value chain, and particularly during the fishing itself, becomes increasingly a topic, because so much else depends on that. And then, of course, we're talking also jobs. We heard already that globally 100 million jobs are exercised along the value chain, of which 45 million are women. And I think in the global pictures is about Africa accounts to just under 10% of the overall workforce. So it's very, very important as Africa is becoming the most populous continent on the planet. We've also, I don't know, can you get the slides on?
Yes, it's on. So I don't know.
Okay, I just can't see it. That's okay. You are perhaps in the cover page. That's okay. So this is just to sort of provide a framework. And because today is World Fisheries Day, and of course we are still in the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, you know, all positive factors to really put the small-scale fishers into the limelight. But in reaction to what I heard this morning, the talk I will give, or I'm giving, is focused very much on how to do it. How can we practice some of the principles on the ground? And perhaps for starters, I would love to share with you, just to give you the flavor of what it can mean. This little video with you is 4 minutes. Isaac, can you screen that for the people who are in the room?
Yes, I can do that. If it is part of your presentation, then we can do that.
Well, it's on slide 2. It's on slide 2.
I have already passed this slides to.
There is a link, but anyway.
Then I will do it.
If it's now becoming, because I'm conscious of the time as well, if it's difficult, we skip the film. If it's difficult, let's skip the film and move on to slide number 3.
Yeah.
Just to share with you that the let's say the methods I'm centered on in terms of how involving people in practice around the methods we have tested in this, what we call the Small Scale Fisheries Academy. And we call it the Academy, not because it's a brick building, but because it is to recognize the local and the indigenous knowledge that small-scale fishers have, and to recognize that different sources of knowledge can be fruitfully brought together so that they can realize their dreams, and we can trace pathways to futures that are hopefully more sustainable and more favorable to small-scale fishers. So when we talk in brief then about empowering people through these approaches, we don't not only think about traditional leaders, but we seek to support more self-confidence, the capacity to analyze, to plan, and to manage one's resources for success among a wide range of community members, men and women. So we see that academy and this learning process as a safe multi-actor platform for respectful dialogue, joint learning, co-creation of knowledge from different sources, and innovation for the recovery, protection, and sustainable use of marine and coastal resources and prosperous artisanal fisheries. We've heard a lot already this morning about overfishing, no fish, no fishes. So if we want prosperous, there is a strong interest in reducing overfishing, recovering resources, so that with less impact and less effort and less destruction, people can earn a decent living. So the Academy provides an operational support for the implementation of the voluntary guidelines adopted by the FAO Committee of Fisheries in 2014. The Academy itself was inaugurated in 2018 with a cross-section of women and men from all segments of the Senegalese artisanal fisheries sector. And it articulates the global sustainable development goals. And the core idea is that we set out with individuals as change agents. And it is to support the individuals and collective action of those individuals in the pursuit of the plans and the objectives they have identified, and enable Academy learners to become themselves facilitators for the change journeys of their economic groups, of their communities, of their families. Slide 4. So how does it work? I would say every change journey starts with drawing up a vision of a happy life for individuals and groups of Academy learners to provide a sense of direction. Working with drawings is important to include people who have had little or no access to formal education, as we find frequently in small-scale fisheries communities. Drawings are conceptual, expressing analysis. And based on that vision that the people themselves have designed and validated with families and peers, and all learners then draw up a change journey towards an objective they think is achievable within a year. And they define intermediate quarterly objectives together with expected obstacle and support. They may draw from friends, from co-workers, and other people. While operating largely in the informal economy, the use of these planning tools enhance people, individual and collective agency on economic and social matters. The little video we couldn't see shows one case of a successful change journey, just to illustrate that it's not daydreaming, but it's very real, even though individually we have no control over the macro conditions. But by working better together, a lot of things become possible. Swain was saying that no gender equity, no sustainable small-scale fisheries. And so while this is sometimes a taboo issue, we tackle that to help people reflect critically about it. It was tackled, in fact, if you look forward to slide 5, from the beginning, by first inviting groups of women and men separately to reflect of what it means to be a woman and a man, what they like and what they don't like so much, and to draw that up in a gender diamond. The diamond canvas and other images allow to go beyond abstract principles and make critical reflections on that issue concrete. Then together, the Academy learners identified which actions should be taken to ensure that all members of the household are respected and take part in decision-making and benefit also from the results. And they used the image of a healthy tree, which you see in the middle of the slide, to connect problems and solutions and the need for fair sharing. They agreed in the end that violence against women and children must stop, and that the tree can only bear fruit and be healthy and strong in the long term, because all members of the family have a say and, contribute and take advantage equitably.
I just can inform you You have less than 2 minutes, please go on.
Yes. On the, let's say then, let's just look very briefly at the value chain. The key point there is that when people who work in segments meet and connect, they see what reserves of efficiency they have and how they, on all sides of the value chain, can make better business. The next slide's about promoting recovery and resilience. Addresses that we have often the problem of, let's say, people being subject to pressure from industrial interests. Here is one case of Han, of my co-worker Aliu, who spoke earlier in the plenary as well. And the women fish traders have no toilets, no sanitary facilities, and were, displaced into an awful place to make space for industrial infrastructure. And with the more participatory mode of operating in the municipal commission, we hope to find some good solutions. Next slide, very briefly, the ecosystem approach to fisheries touches very much on broad stakeholder participation, maintain ecosystem or recover ecosystem integrity, and investing in research and knowledge. And the real challenge is to do in each side and condition to translate those principles again into practice. We have produced some educational materials for that, which were originally used for schools, but we use them also to some extent in the fishing communities to good effect. So there are supports to do things not abstractly, but concretely. One of the tools of the educational kit were fish rulers that indicate the minimum size so that you don't fish the babies, but you let them grow so that you have maximum yield forever, not for the moment a little bit, but fish rulers, the physical fish rulers, you have to produce for every place, for every country at least, if the country is not too big. Now, slide 9 shows you that we have now developed in support of innovation of these methods, because most people now have mobile phones. We have developed easy access to the science of collected in a global database of all fish in the world. And that mobile app is free of charge. You give your country, you type in the local name in whatever language you want, and it will show you the picture of the big and what is the minimum size, but also if you are a fisher, the optimum size that will give you maximum fish forever. And, this can be used for education, for the women fish marketers, etc., etc. This is a little technical help, but it's the whole idea is focus on people and help them individually and collectively to implement their trade. So my last slide is to thank you for your attention. And if it's written, join us. Actually, what I want to say, if you are interested in doing more of that and we can help in any way, we will be very happy to do so. Thank you. So it's all about collaboration.
Okay, thank you so much, Connie. I really enjoyed your presentation. And what I learned is that how can we empower our community to be an agent of change? And because of our time limits, I would just kindly plead with all of you that we do all the presentation. Then after that, we have the discussions on the issues that we all discussed. Our next presenter is Iddrisu. So I'll just ask Iddrisu to share his slide.
Okay, so my name is Iddrisu Salifu and I'm speaking from Ghana. Currently, I'm pursuing my second master's in the field of integrated coastal zone management, and my research focus falls under the thematic area blue economy, governance, and resilience. And as part, I drafted a paper out of it that I'm come to share my knowledge towards this what do you call it section, which is innovation, the tools and approaches. So I'm presenting a contributed paper on impact of social protection services and improved fish smoking technologies on the livelihood of small-scale fisher folks in Ghana. I'm presenting the paper with my supervisors, but currently they are not with me. Professor Dennis Walanyo Heto and Dr. Godwin Kofi Bondolia. So this will be the outline of my presentation. I will look at the background to study the system of the problem, the objective of this paper, then some of the research methods I used, and some preliminary results that we are going to discuss. So we all are aware that in 2015, the UN launched the SDGs with 17 goals and out of 169 targets towards transforming the world in order to ensure human well-being, economic prosperity, and that of the environmental protection. Among these SDGs, we know SDG Goal 1, which talks about the ending poverty in all its forms, and that of the SDG 2, that also try to address all forms of hunger at the front line of these 17 SDG goals that we intend to achieve them by 2030. However, poverty and food security still remain a big issue of concern globally. And when you come to, inequality distribution of this poverty and security, people who are dwelling along the coast face the more issue of this. So we all are aware that the fisheries sector and aquaculture is a major subsector of the agriculture that play a very key role in addressing this trend burden of poverty and food security. As the FAO said that about 93 to about 97 million of people around the world depend on the coast for their livelihood. In Africa alone, it is estimated that about 12.3 million depend on the fish and aquaculture, whereby this for them are wild fishes and the rest are that of fish processors and aquaculture. Despite this, they have a lot of challenges that this sector is facing, and Ghana is no exception. Despite the fact that Ghana is blessed with a coastline of about 550 kilometers length, which be able to have a lot of people along the coast because of its abundance of resources. They are facing a lot of challenges that we need to address them. Particularly when you talk of the fishery sector, the women play a very key role. The women are well noted to be their contribution of the fish from fish catch to that of the cash, of which you normally call the money. When the fish are catch from the ocean, it is the women who take over the rest of the activity until it is all come out to tax. So you can see a very framework that tries to explain the complementary role that is being performed by women. Yeah, so we can say the women in fisheries, they are more related to when household, activities, as well as they also indict themselves in other activities like the fish processing information. They also even serve as a financial fishing trips, or they even play a very key role when it comes to financing the fishery sector. And they also look at other alternative livelihood that try to enhance households. So women play a very key role. However, the state of the marine, the state of the fishery sector is not lucrative or is not favorable for the fisher folks or for fish processors to, play their very key role that they intend to play because of this growing impact of climate change with its anthropogenic activities, talking of IUU and those stuff. It's really affecting livelihood of, women in particular. So there's a need for us to devise a very innovative ways of how to enhance their livelihood. When you talk of the vulnerability of the, fisher folks, we can all think of the livelihood framework, whereby we look at the asset that is being available to someone. Then if those assets are not available, what will be the outcome of this, their livelihood of those individuals? So as I've already explained, the fisher folks, especially the small scale fisher folks, are really constrained when it comes to access to some basic necessity. And one of them is the access to credit and also some improved fish smoking technology that will enhance their productivity in the fishery sector. So social protection services is an innovative way to enhance this. When you talk of social protection services, according to ILO, that is International Labour Organization, it is defined as a set of policies and programs that is being designed to reduce and prevent poverty and vulnerability throughout the life of. And one tool that is emerging is what we call, social network saving, whereby we normally call the village saving loans and association. We also have what we call the insurance and other tax transfers. So in response to the problem that is bothering the coast, an NGO called Sarah Development Organization and that of a European Union came together in a very team called Power to the Fishes, and they implemented these social protection services to enhance their livelihood. And also, they also piloted some improved fish smoking technology, we call it Ahoto, to make sure that livelihood of fisherfolk are being enhanced. Therefore, there's a need for us to economically assess the impact of these for scalability and also sustainability of the intervention. So this work focus, this is the main objective of the paper. It seeks to analyze maybe factors that will enhance or that influence someone's decision to participate or not to participate. And also we go ahead to look at the effect of this social protection service on the livelihood of this fisherfolk that we are trying to do, and also to examine the effect of this improved fish smoking technology on the livelihood of the fisherfolks. So I use this conceptual framework to let us explain how we are going to situate our work. So as I've already mentioned, the sustainable livelihood framework, it allows us to understand the vulnerability of the fisherfolks and also the lack of assets that they are not having. And if this asset and the vulnerability are being put in place to ensure what will be the outcome. So we can see that the livelihood outcome here is there's going to increase income, food security, poverty reduction, and reduce vulnerability. So these are the outcome variables that will be measured to achieve our results.
Iddrisu, the PowerPoint has stopped, so I think we can just end it here and then move on to another person, because you only have 2 minutes. I'll ask my next the next person in line to just come and give his talk, because we lost Iddrisu, so I don't know what is happening with the network, and he is almost done. So
Thank you. My name is Qurban Rouhani from Rhodes University here in South Africa. I'm from a unit in the department of Fisheries, Fisheries Science, and my interest, among other things, is in the small-scale fisheries. And if you remember, with Judge Pretorius this morning in the plenary session, he was talking about having a rear view mirror, and I think so. In this talk, I'll be having the rear view mirror, and I asked the question: what is the impact of our new policy, which is only our new national fisheries policy that came out in February this year? So I'm asking the question: will offer relief for small-scale fishers. And to understand how South Africa works, for those of you who are not from this country, we have 9 provinces, and essentially each province is a mini government, and they've got their own laws and legislation and parliament. So we have legislation at the provincial level on the covers and fisheries policies, but we don't have any legislation at the national level on fisheries policies. The national, and this is actually what we talk about here in the history. So at the national level, the legislation is about marine fisheries and not freshwater. And so this has kind of created it's a legacy from apartheid colonial days. So to understand MFG, you got to look back, and it really begins in the 1860s when the colonial in South Africa had an interest in trout fishing. So they went and brought trout from Europe. And so the inlet fisheries was always about recreation fishing. It was never about small scale fisheries. And And there's a race element to this. So when they promulgated their acts, it was about keeping recreational fisheries and serving that interest. And our present day provisional legislation stems from the 1860s, 50s legislation. So there's so in our provisional legislation, it still is about the promotion of recreational fisheries, and in effect, it's silent about small-scale fisheries and their needs. So what is the impact of this? It has promoted recreational fisheries, that's on the one end, but on the other hand, it has done nothing for small-scale fisheries. In fact, it's the opposite. It has effectively delegitimized the sector, and in many cases, it has criminalized them. So our recreational fishery is worth 19 billion rands, which is worth about $1.5 billion US. So it's very important for the economy, and we appreciate that. But we still have to bear in mind that it came at a cost, and the cost was that small-scale fisheries in South Africa really could not exist legally. So while we have numbers on our recreational fishery, our small-scale fisheries, it's underdeveloped. There are no formal structures. We put very little data as to where are they, what is the sector worth, how many fishermen there are, what is the tonnage they get. We don't have any of that data. And that's an effect from our really poor legislation at the provinces. So if you look at in this slide here, you'll find that in many cases with small-scale fishers fish, especially if they want to use motorized vehicle and gill nets, they're effectively classified as poachers. And that's what happens if you are a small-scale fisher in South Africa, if you want to use nets. So I'm going to give you an example here of what I mean by unreformed provisional legislation in South Africa. So on your left, you've got 9 provinces. On your left is the Fisheries province, and in the first box you find no person shall catch fish in any water otherwise than by angling. So if you're a small-scale fisher and you want to fish for trade and for business, you can only fish with rod and line. You can't use any other gear, and that's a problem if you're a small-scale fisher. But if you look at the very bottom, there's a provision. If you are a private landowner, these regulations don't apply to you. So if you understand the context in South Africa, who owns and doesn't own land, you can see how it's a problem. Because land was central to the struggle. And again, you see in the province, the only gear you're allowed to use to fish in the freshwater is by rod and line. And that's good if you're a recreational angler, but if you're a small-scale fisher, that's a problem. But if you're a landowner, these regs don't apply to you. If you are in this province, or in the Western Cape province, I've taken this from the guidelines, but this is its root is in the legislation. So you'll see that it says fish harvesting of indigenous fish species will be prohibited in public waters. So any indigenous fish in the province is prohibited. But if you're a private landowner, it's not prohibited, it's discouraged. And in legal terms, there's a huge difference between being discouraged and being prohibited. And again, so if you know who owns and doesn't own land, you can see why this is problematic and why we need new legislation. So in 2020, this year, we came up with the new inland fisheries policies. So I asked the question, will this be of relief to small-scale fishers? So just to kind of go into the policy before I answer that question. So, I was part of a team that wrote the policy, but there were many things that we didn't recognize then as we do now. So it's based really on the FAO guidelines, institutional imperatives in it. And for the first time, it recognizes small-scale fishers, traditional fishers. So it's quite, it's quite aligned to the Constitution. And if we talk about co-management, we talk about, yeah. So anyway, I see 2 minutes here. But then there's an issue with it, with our policy, in that national policy sits lower than provincial legislation. So in terms of our laws, province legislation is higher ranked than national policy, if that policy doesn't have legislation behind it. So in effect, the policy as it sits now is ineffective. So what are the 2 options for the national government? It's either to review all of the provincial legislation, which is going to be a real slog because it's 9 provinces. The other option is that they could then create new legislation. And I think that is what we are trying to push the government to do. So in conclusion, we have new progressive national legislation, but it's still subservient to provincial legislation. So one urgent need of reform, and we really need to push our national government to put in new legislation.
Thank you so much for your presentation and making it on time. I really appreciate it. Our next speaker is Patrick. So Patrick would just give us his presentation, and I would like to take this opportunity to also thank you for the IT aspect. That's it has been really all does. Patrick's work is going to have a look at the IT, not knowing he's also IT guy. So thank you very much.
I'm Patrick from Malawi, and I'll be taking you through designing digital marketing tools for small-scale fish traders in Malawi. So that's the presentation outline. And in brief, Rouhani and Michigan State University are deploying an application to solve the problem of lack of access to market information. So the app has been proposed to improve market communication and market linkages after the problem of price being destabilized because of price volatility, and also issues of destabilized livelihoods that has come up because of market asymmetry. There's a lot of market failure in the fish sector. So we started to link what people want to what is supplied on the piloted app. So previous studies have highlighted problems that are in the fishery sector. There is lack of access to information, and there is also issue of livelihoods that are affected because of the inefficiencies that are in the market. And we recognize the importance of the fisheries sector because it provides for a lot of people in Malawi, and also it helps in the achievement of the sustainable development goals and also the national economic goals. So we started with what's important, the fishery sector being important, and also the marketing, the fish marketing system is so complex. Top of the pricing itself, and also how it works, it's very complex. So we say, if we are going to find a way to solve problems in the fishery sector, that means other sectors will actually be easy because the fishery sector is so complex. So we studied or examined traders' preferences, because if we are to employ digital tools to solve traders' problems, if they are not using it, then creating it is just wasting time. So if you are developing a tool, we need to know how people feel about it, what attributes are important to them, because the development of the app came in from their need. So after their need, we developed, and then after development, now we have to get feedback from them. What is it that we have put in that satisfies them? Because if it's valuable to them, then they are going to use it, and it's going to be of use, and it's going to be sustainable. And the other aspect, as I have said, we looked at willingness to pay so that it is self-sufficient. So we answered those three questions. Are they what do they prefer? And are they willing to pay? And what factors affect their willingness? So we started 12 markets in 12 districts in Malawi, and we managed to collect data from 548 fish traders, and we collected data from survey questionnaire, the digital survey questionnaire, and also the app itself when piloting. They were able to upload data, and we collected data from about 1,300 fish traders to gauge their preferences. So we used the Latin class model to be able to study feelings, because feelings are something that we can't see. So a Latin class model enables researchers to draw a pattern of people's liking in a way that you can easily profile them and know subgroups that you can actually apply certain interventions. And for the willingness to pay, we use Heckman model, two-stage probit, so that we know, one, if they are willing to pay, and two, how much are they willing to pay? So those are the demographic characteristics. We see that a lot of fish traders are actually not living below the poverty line, and we also see that there is a substantial percentage of traders that have phones. So there are a lot of percentage, as you can see, 75% have small phones without internet. So on the preference to digital tools, we see the Latin class model provided us 3-class model as the best model of fit, whereby we can classify the traders in 3 classes. And the first class, with a lot of traders, we call them the digital eyes, whereby they prefer all the digital tools, pause, USSD, which is a push message, an app, also like TV programs and also radio programs. And then we also see class 2 and class 3, which also different likings. And then we also determine what influence the membership in these different classes. And we saw that the role the trader played, like being a retailer, has influence to make one belong in one class. And we also see that trust, type of fish that the traders are selling, and also the format in which the information is on, had influence to a class membership. And next, we looked at preference to USSD or a push message system, because the system was made in an integrated way. So we also, the Latin class model provided us with a 3-class model to show that we can classify their liking or preferences in those classes, whereby we saw that the majority of the traders would prefer a push message that is free of charge, and that has price information, weather information, buyers contacts, and many users on the app, on the system, and also use of Facebook and also credit facility to be able to supply a fish. And the determinants of these classes were also being a broker, influence to class membership, and trust, the need for a certain format of the messages, being a vendor, and also buying from vendors have influence on belonging to a certain class group. And the app itself, we also looked at preferences to the application. There is an app. So the Latin class model provided us also with 3-class model. The 3-class model indicated also that majority, 75%, belong to the first class, that preferred the application to be free, and the need for price information on the app, different tools with regards to giving price information, weather information, WhatsApp sharing or sharing on Facebook, and also sharing the same information through messages, and also mobile payment that they can easily just trade and get their money through other mobile payment means. And the determinants were also different determinants that determine the traders belonging to a class. So the other objective was their willingness to pay. We found that majority of these fish traders were willing to pay for such a system. And using the bounded and linear combination of estimation, we found that traders are willing to pay more for calls because they are convenient and instant, because fish prices continue to change, and they are also willing to pay more for app and then also the USSD system. So those are the marginal plots showing factors that affect whether positively or negatively their willingness to pay. So we can see that there are a lot of factors like gender, age, education, and marital status that affect traders' willingness to pay, and also even region belonging to one part of the country and an influence in their willingness to pay. Likewise, we did determine traders' willingness to pay for each platform, call separately, app separately. So we found that there are also factors that determine their willingness to pay for calls, which were gender, age, and business. Having several businesses also affected members' willingness to pay. So in conclusion, we found that fish traders preferences are heterogeneous. There are different feelings on how digital tools should be designed. And then we are also able to notice that traders can best be classified into 3 class groups for all these platforms. And a lot of them prefer the use of USSD calls and radio or TV programs. And across the preferences, we also saw that they would like to have a free service, but then the ones that stood out the most was the issue of free service, information, mobile payment, and also their need for credit information. And recommendation, if a digital platform is to be made for the fisheries sector, there is need of a cross-cutting platform, not a platform that is just pushing us to an application, but there is need of a platform that is integrated so that it provides the different needs of different traders if we were to get the industry as a whole. And there is also very big need in terms of majority of the traders belonging to a class with just small phones. So the means getting to a small phones would actually be more preferable, and there's a strong need for access to credit information. And to achieve the diverse needs, there's need of stakeholder collaboration to play different role based on their different needs. And in that way, I think the intervention can now, the created platforms can be sustainable and also can have more impact, providing for traders' need and also for the stakeholders' need, depending on their data needs, and also working hand in hand with the fish traders. So thank you very much. And the project was implemented by those 3 partners, Luana in Malawi, Michigan State University, and Alliance for African Partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving us. We had 2 presentations on the IT, and then we also had a story from South Africa in terms of the law and policy, and then we had a presentation from Ghana in terms of access problem. I would just give a brief presentation of what I did, but I'll just make it very quick in order for all of us to have time to have the discussion. So I'll talk on cross-border trade. So thank you. So I'll just be brief about what we did. In 2018 to 19, my team and I were trying to find out why is it that Africans are not being able to trade among themselves. So what we did was just that to move around Africa and see how the issues they encountered in terms of trade in fisheries. So we went to Mali, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Senegal. All of us were young and so excited to do this job because, especially for me, I have finished my master's in Holland and then I have had a job in America, but I came to America for a month and I said, no, I have learned a lot of things in Holland, so I need to move back home and help Africa. But it was so struggle for me to even get a job. So my team and I formed a company to see how best we can help in fisheries. So we went to Mali, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Senegal, and Co. So these are the pictures, but I'll be brief on the aspect that we did. So these are the map, all these things have been known already. So what we did was just that we came up with the market and the landing side in each country. So I had a friend of mine who did an IT in Holland. So he also moved back home. So he was part of our team. So we started to do this kind of work. So like what all these things are part of, and then we started to map like how the fish move from one country to another. So like we noticed that in Senegal, it goes to Mali in terms of the fish that they use smoke, but in Senegal, Gambia, and Co, the fish that goes to Ghana are the ones that they have been put this salt on it. So another part of Africa. But Mauritania, we noticed that Mauritania had a lot of them, but those ones comes with ship and by air to the other African countries. So like this is in terms of how much per each species that comes because of time. And the most interesting part that we found out was the complex border issues. Because like they are willing to help and then make sure that Africa have enough food and fish not to depend on the fish from Asia and Europe. But however, they encountered a lot of the bribe, bad roads, there's only facilities among those aspects. And all these things happen in terms of the amount of fish that they are trying to export. So we just did an analysis of how much time they do spend if moving from like Mali to Ghana, from Ivory Coast to Niger, and all those things. So we came up with this, how many bus stops they have to do per each country, and it was interesting. But for example, if we look at from Bamako to from Hamburg to the destination, within each 1,200 kilometers, they have to stop like 6 times and all those things. So we came up with these findings, and then we just presented our findings to AU and then African Union and young guys. But later we noticed that more work was done on what we came up with our findings. So it was just, so what we were thinking is just that they should just establish just onshore, maybe an office in Accra or an office in Mali, that if fisher person will just go and get the documentation, they can move through the whole of Africa and all those things. But recently I noticed that all the distance has been done, and I'm happy and then that we came up with this ideas and they also picked up. So like I'm more motivated and I'm happy to see Patrick's work with the IT in terms of marketing. I do believe that when all the lessons are presented to African Union, they will take it up to see how this they can help. So this is the end of my slides, and then that's me. So we had 6 PowerPoint and discussion. Our first one came from Connie. I have heard of her, but I didn't know her so now. So I learned from her that how can we empower the members to be an agent of change in the communities. And we also heard from Iddrisu from Ghana, and then he talked about access issues. And then we heard from our friend from South Africa. And I'm really shocked about, like, in South Africa, in terms of the law that's in the province are more valued as compared to the laws in the national. This is my understanding, if I'm wrong. But in my country, like Ghana, the laws that are in the low levels are not being treated as much, but they all want the laws in the national.
The national law is higher than province law. That's right. But I was talking about national legislation that is not supported. Sorry, I was talking about national policy that is not yet supported by legislation. So national policy, if all by itself, sits lower than the province. National policy is not married to any legislation. It sits lower than provinces.
Yeah. So it's different from next country. So it's just so, and we heard from Patrick about his IT in terms of how we can use the IT to make sure that we have a price table, and then how it provides and affects livelihood and willingness to pay for IT in terms of this aspect. So I'll open the floor for the discussion. If anyone have a question, a contribution to a specific issue, then you can have. If you can mention name and then whom the question is.
Thank you so much. What was it? I bring out your kids is very interesting. But what we learned is very not important because they work on the course on the regulation of that almost very important. Where is this thing? I think that there's no point for way. Sort of this regulation that can be part of the national policy. What's of the umbrella of it, which is the national policy. And where is the problem? Is the policymaker or the technocrats who are supposed to develop good regulation that we have the national policy?
So I think part of the problem is that in Africa, provinces are really government. They've got all these stations, they have a court of parliament, they've got quite strong political entity. So now that we have national policy, the minister needs to decide what kind of legislation needs to go behind this policy. And they realize that as we speak about power, what should decide at the province. So I suspect there are political considerations that is going on as to how not to overly anger the province, because in a way you're going to have to remove that power that's in the province in fisheries, take it out of there and bring it to national, because national has the mandate. So I think I'm trying to figure out what is the least way, the least the most the way that makes the promises as least angry as possible, and not to over-irritate them. So Yeah, so, and national government still hasn't said what path they're going to take. And this policy, in fact, even though it was released in February this year, it's been 6 years in the making. So they've had a lot of time to think about it. So it tells me that there's something that's bothering them. They're not exposing. So it's interesting, yeah. So
because it's an interesting, I don't know how it's can. Well, I think keeping them here is that city. Now, the fisheries policy that trying to almost get now.
yeah.
Right now, they're saying by the end of the year, make it out. They try. So sometimes you start asking the question, yeah, why should we try to just come up with guides?
Okay, thank you so much. And I will kindly ask you to speak up, because those online said they can't hear you very well. And I would have loved to bring the speakers to, but if I remove it. Yes. So.
My name is Rita Hackenberg. I'm from the Livelihood Foundation. I'm the team leader of the project in community fisheries in Gaza. My question is, while we are talking about value chains and policies, I think there's an acknowledgement of also apps and tools there. I heard that trading burdens the poverty and food security. And I think all of us have recognized that fish stocks are in Africa on the decline, and that is everywhere. My question is, are we not missing a point here that we are talking about value chain development while we are not having anything to develop? So actually, I think that question is probably, whoever is willing to pick that.
I'll just ask those online if you like to answer her question.
Was that the question to me?
Like, her view is this, that we are trying to develop value chain, but in Africa, our fish stock is being depleted. So what are we doing to ensure that we can rebuild our stock? Because we are developing apps, we are doing value chain empowerment, but we don't have the fish in the ocean itself.
Yes, yes. That is true. Thank you, first of all, for the question and the interest. I think, as was already said or alluded to, at least briefly this morning, if we want to become more effective in lobbying for sustainable fisheries, having more realistic data that are more robust and better validated helps. We know, for example, that most African statistical offices are so under-resourced and have a hard time that it's very difficult for them to come up with proper realistic data. Therefore, already 10 years ago, some 10 years ago, a scientific initiative was launched through the Sea Around Us initiative, working with local scientists all over the world in every individual country, big islands and so on, to reconstruct what the more realistic estimates of catches were, and to help upgrade the reliability of the compilations that FAO puts together on a global level on the basis of very incomplete recordings from national statistical offices. And it so happens that in many countries, say Senegal, Ghana, some others, the official records capture some of the commercial landings, but very poorly cover artisanal fish catches, which are distributed along the coast, and they have an extremely hard time to estimate the IUU fishing, the things that are being transported at sea, and so on. So this scientific effort is now freely available, is updated to 2018. You can go onto the website, seaaroundus.org, and check for the country of your interest, what are better estimates. I mean, they will also have error margins and so on, but at least, you know, it's better than assuming that there is nothing. And what we are trying to do is making people aware and giving easier access to a range of information sources that allows them to position their community, their businesses and so on, in relation to a more realistic picture, and support their demand to play a more active role in governance. In what we hear, for example, all the time is that both the men and the women are quite aware that their biggest problem is the high level of illegal industrial fishing off their coast. And that as a result, their income has gone down over the last 10, 15 years. And because they have fewer resources, fewer resources and income, it puts enormous strain on their capacity to organize, to keep the communities alive. As we heard earlier, you know, in Ghana, they used to have off days, usually Tuesdays, and they had the festivals and so on. They would treat also their crews nicely and so on. But when the money is running short, you cannot maintain all of this. Or the women are complaining that they used to have privileged access to the catches, the landings, because they would be pre-financing some of the fishing trips. But as costs rise all the time because of a greater competition, with absurd big competition with the industrial fleet and other constraints, they are losing status and income, and it affects the overall functioning of the community. So but you know, there will not be a magic help from somewhere in the sky. So the methods we are trying to deploy and support others to deploy is to really help people to sort of take stock critically of where they are, where they want to go, and facilitate that they themselves organize themselves better and be better advocates, because nobody speaking on their behalf will have the same authenticity and legitimacy in putting their case forward. If we have good lawyers and so on, it will help. But as we heard from the lawyers themselves, it's kind of the last resort. It is really supporting the ability to be an active part in deliberations in societies, not be marginalized, getting expertise that perhaps is not available in the community itself, so that they don't drop out when, you know, the technical people have language that they don't understand, and force that, you know, things are being made in a way and presented in a way that they can understand it, grasp it, and be active part. So, and I think this is not a magic solution. It will not automatically bring back the fish, but I think it's the best hope we have in forming broad alliances in support of such processes that will also help tilt the balance again to recover the resources. Because if we don't, you know, we're all losers. And, as Rashid Somaila used to say, okay, in Namibia, you are mining diamonds, but there is an end to the diamonds. But if you manage your fish resources well, and as an economist, you add up over the years, nothing can beat the long-term value of a renewable resource if you manage it well. So that's the message, and that is what we're working for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie. I'm so excited for you to bring up this sea around us. That website influenced me so much to go into fisheries, and Poly, actually, Williams and co were so much people that I look up to, and then so these are the things that we can also do. But one thing that I would like to add to a caution is just that, like in Africa, we are trying to build the stock, and most of the things that we do depend on funding. Like as Amadito presented in the primary, all the lists that he listed up from outside, from EU, from America, and all those things. Like for example, in Ghana has a 5 years project from S7P America. After that, what next? Yeah. So my aim is that I think the youth of Africa has to take it upon ourselves, especially those of us who have a background in science and fisheries, have to take it upon ourselves after 5 years, after 10 years. And then they leave, what are we going to do? So this is the thing that I can say. But we have another, Patrick would like to add up.
Just have a comment and a quick question. The quick comment is on development, value chain analysis, as we heard the presentation, and also development of tools and collection of data. I think the analysis itself and development tools go hand in hand, whereby one, you use of tools and the data now can be used to inform policy, whereby for the example, the app, we're trying to make the fish traders upload the data if you provide something valuable. So if you are collecting, example, how much they are catching, because how much they are catching is how much they are selling. So you can easily learn the data points on where you can control, where you can come in. And the value chain studies can also help you know maybe where large sums of quantities are moved. In that way, that means the ones that are in authority, now they know which points to control and also the flow. And but my quick question was on the value chain studies and also the mapping. I wanted to ask if there were quantifications on in terms of efficiency and effectiveness of those routes. Which routes were more profitable? Which routes was that kind of analysis done, and what can we learn from which routes should we all aim at? Thank you.
His question is pointing to my presentation on which routes that we have to aim for. For example, like in the earlier presentation from Jasmine or something from Ghana, he said they import more fish into Ghana. So I think the route to Ghana will be very helpful if that's one can develop, because you always look at where the money would come from. If you import to Kenya, but Kenya does not depend much on fish, so you have to look for where they can come. But we didn't do an analysis on how much each one is eating on, or how much where it will be profitable. Our aim was to find out what are the issues that they face when they would like to do trade. So is it?
Yeah, thank you. I'm asking him a question, but
Those on the line would like to.
yeah, thank you. My question is about the use of applications. The use of applications in fish marketing. I'm asking this question in the context of the African fishing communities and fish traders. And I'm looking at apps where some of its use might be very complicated and some might be simple. And I saw you project something about USSD. Which one do you think should be more practical, the app or the USSD? Because most of our fisher communities and fish traders, the education, the literacy level is very low. And we want something practical that can help quickly without any problems and upscaled without a lot of upskilling very fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. So as you ladies mentioned in the first part, whereby based on the African context, I think such study like the one that I presented, we looked at majority like 75% of Malawian fish traders have small farms. So it's limited whereby for them, for the general community, what would work is USSD as a push message, but now it has a limitation whereby others can't read, nor are illiterate. So the proposed in the system that we are piloting is the pre-recorded call. For information dissemination, the traders are receive a call. There is this market. Would you like to supply? Press 1 if yes, press 2 if no. And then they easily just press the numbers because they're at least able to use the numbers. The other part is if you want to collect data as how I think you are aware of SurveyMonkey. See the message and then you're told press numbers. The same way, even if you are to collect data, you can also use the code, whereby it's not limited to the type of phone, but you can easily just press numbers. But the adding in of an app or let's say website and also WhatsApp comes in because, for example, trading fish depends on quality. The better fish you have, the better market you get and the better price you get. So coming in this platform, sometimes for you to go to a place to buy fish, it depends on the quality. So you are having an additional way of seeing the quality before you even decide where to go, and more in the app like for analysis. It does quick analysis that incorporates models to tell you based on your wants or based on the money that you have, then go this way you make much money. Or go this. So those analytics can easily be predicted or be given a full view of the summary on an app or other ways. But for the core, you can easily now interact.
I'm really enjoying the discussion. Oh no, come on. Yeah. I'm enjoying the discussion.
I'm Tetsuo from Japan. I'm currently working in Malawi. I thought this one is a mic, no?
But maybe they would like to say your praise.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm just trying to respond to this discussion about value chain. Value chain analysis and the development of new tools in the value chain should have a kind of impact on the reduction of post-harvest loss that will contribute to the decline of fish stocks in the global context. And in such a sense, I really want to have your impression, those who are developing these apps, you have an impression of how much your apps will be effective in reducing the post-harvest.
Okay, thank you so much for the discussion. Our time is up. I would love us to go on more because these are the things that are going to help us. But time is limited. Probably, and we formed a group and then we'll just keep on our discussion and see how best we can work together to solve these issues in Africa. And thank you so much and thank you for coming. Those online, I really appreciate your help for joining us. I'll be in touch, please, Connie. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And perhaps just one last word. I think technical means are all very well, but we need to focus on people and build the trust that they feel happy with using them to the best of their benefit.
Thank you.
And thanks for very interesting presentations and conversation.
And thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your help. Hi, I need pictures. Yeah, okay. Oh, the email? No, I'll see you. I want to end this, but just.
The Zoom call?